Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Marina Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Will Moore. He's a serial entrepreneur and a TEDx speaker, and today we are going to be talking about transforming your life through habits. Welcome, Will.
Thank you so much, Myrna. I'm super thrilled to be here. I can't wait to talk and share with you and your audience.
Okay, awesome. Yes, I am very excited for you to be talking to us today too, because habits are very important. You know, they always say, I heard earlier that it takes 21 days to form a habit, but now some people are actually challenging that. They're saying it takes about 3 months or 90 days to form a habit. So whatever we do on a consistent basis, it forms a habit. So we're talking about transforming our lives through habits, which is great. And the habit that we're trying to develop, according to what we're going to talk about today, is the happiness. So we're going to be touching on how to form habits that would increase your happiness. So let me give you a bit more information about Will before we get started. Will Moore is a serial entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, life coach, and happiness expert. After exiting his delivery startup for $323 million in 2019, Will confirmed what he'd spent the last 25 years researching. True happiness isn't about money, power, or fame. It's about figuring out what makes you happy and then taking consistent actions on those things every single day. To do this, Will has thrown out the book on traditional self-improvement, creating in self a unique system that reduces friction by combining the latest in science and technology with habits and universal principles, gamifying the process of building momentum. Will's company, More Momentum, is addressing the social dilemma and helping people hold themselves accountable by taking the necessary action to replace their failure habits with success habits. Will teaches on 5 core areas of life: mindset, career and finances, relationships, physical health, and emotional health, and giving back. More Momentum is committed to helping people fire on all cylinders on their way to becoming an unstoppable force so they can then pay it forward to help the world do the same. Awesome bio. It sounds well that you're very successful. It's everybody's dream is to have an exit strategy that makes them several $1 million, especially 323 million. So that is a great foundation to what you are doing with More Momentum. So briefly, can you tell us how you got into this journey to understanding that happiness does not come from fame, or it does not come from money, or it doesn't come from power? Because everybody seems to think so.
Yeah, well, totally. Just a brief background. I was definitely, by the time I got to college, I was your typical, I call it a fixed victim. Somebody that's sure that life is out to get them. There's nothing they can do about it. Poor me, maybe I'll hit the lottery someday and everything will be fixed, right? My mom was an alcoholic. She was verbally and physically abusive. My parents divorced early. We moved around a lot. I just never really fit in. And, I was just kind of got to a point where I was basically suicidal in college. And I serendipitously, one of my professors introduced me to a book that sort of changed my mindset and started to shift me towards what I call a growth owner mindset. It was called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Mr. Dale Carnegie, which
yeah. So
probably familiar with.
Right. I am. Yes, I have it on in my library.
Love it. Yeah, I've read it so many times. I mean, written back in like the 40s, 70 years ago, and still 80 years ago, it still stands up today, which is, to me, that's a testament of, the universal principles is something I locked onto earlier. I'm like, there's these principles in life that if you follow them, if you abide by them, if you lead your life by them, build your habits around them, you're going to do pretty well and you're going to be happy. If you ignore them and try to cheat the system and work around them, you're going to struggle. So that sort of opened up my mind. And that principle in particular, that the main one from that book was take all the focus off yourself. Like, it's not about you, put it on other people. If you want to have more friends than you can handle, do accelerate in business, have allies that are constantly trying to help you, good team members that love you and you work well with, like, just make the other person feel special, ask about them, and be genuinely interested. It's not rocket science, but that's it. And I just took that to heart, and I started to shift, and I started taking all this like poor me victim stuff and kind of like, all right, and asking people questions, and it was like my own human science experiment, taking notes, seeing what worked, what didn't. And I noticed, people responded well to it, and I was becoming more popular, and people actually started liking me versus, me constantly being in my head like, oh, I'm a loser, nobody likes me. So that just started my journey, and I never stopped. I became an insatiable self-help beast. I was reading book after book on these, all the greats that I could get my hands on, Think and Grow Rich, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that one up later when we talked about the habits. So you're right. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah. And just learning and growing and developing and taking one step at a time, figuring out what life's all about, and reinventing myself the whole way, and how I can become happy. And so over time, it all kind of culminated, and career and finances, that's one of the cores that I talk about. And at the time I kind of thought, okay, I'm going to become so rich and famous. Everybody's just going to be like, how could we possibly have been mean to him? Like, that whole like classic revenge.
That's a good plan.
and I don't regret those early feelings, because it definitely sparked and pushed me to kind of become this entrepreneur and start my own thing. And I just had this insatiable thirst for it. And along the way, and in doing that and discovering, this whole path to financial success, I realized it was not in spite of, but because of the fact that I was also developing these other areas of my life, my physical health, my relationships, my emotional health and giving back, my mindset. And so I realized I started to kind of formulate, and I didn't name them at the time, but sort of like living this more holistic type of lifestyle, where I call it now firing on all cylinders, where when you're doing these things and you're building momentum and creating the right habits in each of these areas, you can't help but be successful in the others. It sort of spreads. People can sense that, and they can feel it, and they can feel your momentum and your energy. And so that's kind of, and then when we sold our business in 2019, for a combined 321 million, I had enough money where I could say, okay, I don't technically have to work anymore, but
of course not.
This is the big epiphany moment that I actually kind of already knew was coming, but it was confirmed, and I'm glad it was, which was, it's not about just money and getting to a point where you reach the end of the rainbow and there's this big pot of gold and you can sit on a beach drinking a pina colada. It's about continually growing and moving and inertia and setting goals and these different areas of your life and constantly growing. So I immediately was like, okay, what now? What next? And so I said, I've been kind of building my own life over the years, taking all these notes and figuring out what works, what doesn't. Now I want to translate that and help others. And also at the same time, I had 2 small boys, one's 5 now and one's 2. So it was perfect timing where they're entering into the world. And I want, if nothing else, for them to have a guide to help them.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I started my spiritual journey with the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. So I understand what you're talking about. I mean, when I read that book, that started me on my path to becoming a spiritual person. But one of the things that when you were talking about the fact that your exit strategy, you had all this money, and you didn't say it, but I'm assuming that you thought now that you should be happy, and you weren't. But a lot of people will tell you, because I'm in this space, so I understand what you're talking about. But a lot of people will tell you that you're not really totally happy until you're contributing to the world, until you're giving back. And I see one of your models is, emotional health and giving back. So, when we're serving, that's the word. When you're serving is where you can be happiest. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
Go ahead. Now, okay. So So tell us how you got onto the habits. You started off with how to win friends and influence people, and then the habits of highly successful
Yeah.
people. How did you
Right.
combine that into what you do now?
So, right. Habits were not like, they weren't as integral and central as they are now for me. In that, I was identifying these bad habits. I call them failure habits,
Okay.
and replacing them with success habits. But I wasn't like consciously like, okay, I need to shine a spotlight on all the things I'm doing that are hurting me, causing me negative momentum in each of my 5 core areas. And then I'm going to replace them with success habits. That's something that came later where I'm like, wow, it was like a light bulb. And the book that I actually read called Atomic Habits by James Clear, I read several years ago, and I'd already kind of written most of my book and knew the message I was trying to get out. And that just helped to really give me a foundation to sort of wrap everything around. And that really, it all comes down to your habits. Your habits are you are your habits. We run on autopilot 90% of the time, and we're just doing the things that we have done repeatedly, whether they're good or bad. And here's the kicker: habits don't care if they're helping or hurting us. They're going to do their thing over time, and they're going to compound.
Your brain just takes over. You know how many times I go on automatic almost every time I drive, and it's, I know what you mean. I'll be meaning to go someplace different. Next thing I end up at the place
Perfect
I wasn't
example.
supposed to be going.
That's a perfect example where your brain, it's trying to conserve energy, right? Because we only have so much
Yes.
up there. And it's like, okay, we've done this before. We're going to head this way. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm in the grocery store, not to the dry cleaner or whatever. So
Right.
it's the same way with the things that you're doing. And the problem is, I think most people, they have no idea, they may have some idea of like, okay, I know I shouldn't eat these bad things. I know I should exercise more, but there's no specific sort of system and plan to be like, okay, let's identify what's really killing me. And a lot of people have no idea, or little idea, I should say, of what those habits are that are really hurting them and which ones to then replace them with, and then a system to actually get that going. And so that's what I help people focus on.
Okay, so you discovered the success habits and the failure habits, and then you just made it integral to your more momentum training. Now, so let's get to the habits of successful people. You mentioned that you read the book. It's by Stephen R. Covey, and it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. I read that, maybe in the 80s or something, because it was a business book and I had just gotten into business, and I read it, and it didn't speak to me because it was very technical and formal or whatever. So I've revisited every now and again because it's not that easy a book to read. So what are you're calling yours success habits and failure habits? So let's talk about a few of them.
Yeah. So, that book's a great book, and it was a great kind of, for me, a starter of like, okay, these are important things to remember to do in life. But as I started growing and reading more books and exploring, I realized like there's just so much more than is just in that book. And
Right.
and as I said, reading that book called Atomic Habits sort of helped me to put it all together in a cleaner, simpler package that people could understand and relate to and be able to do it themselves.
Well, yeah, that's basically what I said. The 7 Habits. It wasn't a very easy book to read. I mean, when you finish reading a book, you should be able to remember the stuff. But this was so technical,
right. To me,
or whatever. I just remembered that I didn't really gain much from it, and I've read it several times since. I've never heard of the Atomic one that you're talking about. So.
Oh
right,
yeah,
so
you should definitely read that. That's more practical stuff you can start doing. And that's, you just hit the nail on the head in terms of one of my biggest pet peeves with the self-help personal development. I don't even like those names because I feel like they've got a bad rap. What I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to create this movement of change to where people get moving themselves and start building their own momentum, become happier, and then hopefully they pass it on and help the world do the same. And, one of the things that people do is they get caught up in thinking that, these certain habits that they're doing are going to lead to the promised land, and they're just not focusing on those ones that are are thinking in terms of like, well, this is going to compound over time. And I actually have what I call the equation of life, is something I put together. To me, this says it all on how the formula for being happy: your belief system plus your repeated actions plus time equals who you will become, right? So the thoughts that you think, which, that goes back to that book, The Secret, which I remember reading that book and thinking, and seeing that video and being like, oh my God, this is the answer to the universe. But they don't have the action part in it. It's like, you can't just think about it. You got to actually take action.
I love it. You mean you can't just put it on your vision board and then 10 years later, you're going to get it?
Right. And right. Exactly. And I had a vision board, still do, it's sitting right here. But then it's, okay, you got to set goals on that stuff and take it to the next level and say, okay, how can I actually create this in my life? Because again, a fixed victim would just sit around and being like, when's it going to come? I've been thinking about it. Versus a growth owner goes, all right, I got everything within me to kick ass, take names. It's only a matter of time. Obstacles are temporary roadblocks. And every step of the way that I fail, I'm going to fail forward, and I'm going to become bigger, better, faster, stronger, smarter on my way to becoming this unstoppable force, right? That's the attitude you got to have. And it doesn't come easily. It doesn't come overnight. And that's why the compounding part, your belief system plus your repeated actions plus time equals who you will become, because those actions start becoming habits and they turn into things that are actually automatically building your momentum along the way versus hurting it. And then that's when you become the person that you want to be.
Yeah, I love that formula. That's actually true. So, so the question I asked you is, give us some success habits that we can start doing. Not necessarily talk about the failure ones, but give us a couple of success habits that you have discovered.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't I'll give one example in each core.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
So you've got your mindset. To me, your mindset core, it's the most important of all the cores, because everything else kind of revolves around that. Your mindset is essentially, what are the thoughts that are going through your head? Are you a growth owner, or are you a fixed victim? Do you believe you have everything within you to kick ass, take names, like I was just saying? Or, is it poor me? There's nothing I can do about it. I'm set the way I was built, the way I'm built. I was born the way my brain works, the way it is, and there's nothing I can do. How do you view fear? Do you let it stop you in your tracks and prevent any momentum, or do you give it the finger and say, let's go, baby? You know what? If I fail, then not only is that okay, it's mandatory. You can't succeed without failing. And so, I'm not saying I jump up and down every time I fail. That'd be BS. But when I do fail, I go, okay, that sucked. It doesn't feel good. It hurts. But what did I get from it so that I can then grow moving forward? And it's your perception, it's your attitude, it's your confidence. That's your mindset. That's just so important. And then all your other cores kind of spring from that. If you got a good mindset going, everything else becomes incrementally easier. So I'd say one of my biggest.
I agree with that. That's why this show is called Transforming Your Mind to Transform Your Life, because your mind is the first thing, and my very last interview, it's not aired yet, but my very last interview was with my pastor. And basically we talked about renewing the mind, and we talked about the fixed mindset and things like that. So yeah, it's God can't do anything, or nobody can do anything with you if you've got a fixed mindset. There's no growth there. So yeah, pretty good. It's a good start. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so, right. And the top habit for that would be to essentially create, I have, I'm building an app for this that's going to help gamify it and make it fun and interesting and addictive in a good way, to actually catch yourself in the act of the things when you're doing things that you don't want to do, and replacing them with the ones that'll actually help you. But a habit, I think, in the meantime, that'll help you is just use your phone and have the note section at the end of the day. Just kind of give yourself an overall grade in your 5 cores and say, okay, like how did today go in my relationships, my mindset, my career and finances, and just, you don't have to get too nitty gritty and have it feel like a homework assignment, but more just kind of like, and then maybe like a little sentence or two, like best part of the day, worst part of the day. And what's happening is by recording it and by thinking about your day, you're forcing yourself to sort of shine a spotlight on what's working, what's not working, which you're then going to automatically your mind is going to start picking up on and taking the steps moving forward to not make those same mistakes.
That's good. You can also call that reflection. Yes. And that's pretty good. All right.
Yep. And then so for your career and finances, I'd say very first thing you should do is figure out what your strengths and weaknesses, I put them in quotations because I don't even like that word, but things you're not naturally gifted at, your passions are. Figure what those things are, and then kind of set a purpose. So say like, okay, this is what I love to do. This is what fills my soul. I'm really good at it. And these are the things where I'm not so great. So why am I wasting my time trying to deal with that? I can outsource that. I can figure out workarounds, and then try to combine that with an idea that looks into the future, not just copycatting somebody else and saying, oh, this seems like a good business, because you'll just be mediocre at best following the herd. But saying, okay, where's the world headed? How can I combine that with my good stuff and create something amazing, and then set your goals and just get on a rocket ship towards it, and don't take no for an answer.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I do the same thing here. SEO is very important to my business, and I cannot take the time to learn that. So I know a little bit of it, but I mean, you've got to be really good at it. So yeah,
find somebody, right?
Outsort that, right?
You focus on, you're just wasting time to do these things. Like, find somebody that can help you. And
Right,
when you look at, like, I see so many people they try to do it all themselves because they're like, well, I can't afford, but you can't afford not to. Like, you're never gonna be able to like actually make progress. You're gonna be stuck in the mud if you don't start focusing on the things you're good at and make that part of your daily routine, that you're moving that stuff forward. And then, peripherally, the other things that need to be done, you're getting help with. Okay. Third, relationships. I'd say the top habit for that goes back to Mr. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Just make the other people feel special. Whether it's your significant other, your friends and your family, your colleagues at work, and acquaintances. Remember names, remember details about people, be genuinely interested in what they're saying. You may have to fake it at first because we're all selfish, egotistical creatures by nature. But what happens is you actually start to see that they respond to you. They're more interested in you. That becomes addictive. And then you do become more genuinely interested in them. It's this feedback success loop thing you get into, and it's magical. And it just propels your life, because you can't go through life on your own. You got to have other people. Yeah. Good one. Fourth, physical health. I'd say the top habit for that is just, we'll focus on, there's different aspects of that. There's your sleep, there's your eating, there's your exercising. We'll focus on the exercise part of it. I would say, figuring out something that you enjoy doing, but you're also getting exercise from, right? So you're reducing the friction of exercising. For instance, if you hate, my wife runs, she loves it. She's fantastic at it. She likes to do it. I hate it, right? She goes on a run in the morning and it clears her mind, and she comes back and she's uplifted and fulfilled. And whereas it would be torture for me. But I do things like play basketball, I play tennis, golf. I work out in the basement with the kids and they're jumping on my back and we're doing push-ups. Like, I make it fun, and it's things that I enjoy doing, so it doesn't really feel like exercise, right? And that's, to me, that's so important. It's like, don't just go to the gym for 2 hours because you think you have to. Figure out ways. And nowadays, more than ever, you can do stuff from home. They got stuff like Peloton, which is a great company. They gamified exercise by doing exactly what I'm talking about. They made it fun, addictive. They got the competitive aspect. So that would be my top tip for physical.
Yeah. It's funny. Just yesterday, I was having the same conversation. I walk, a 5K every morning, and I walk in the park or I walk on the beach, and it's very therapeutic for me. And, I put a lot of things into it. I walk in nature, and I'm also listening to books or podcasts or something. So I'm learning at the same time, and it's incredible fun. And I absolutely love it. Now, I would love to lose weight. And I know that if I run, then I would lose a lot more weight, but I hate running just like you. Right. So I don't do it. And I know that I'm walking and I'm burning 300 calories or something, but I love it. And I know that it's working towards my health in the long run. Maybe it's not burning off 1,000 calories, like when I go spinning or something, but that's what I enjoy doing. And I know that the long-term benefits are good. So that is amazing. And I was just telling someone yesterday about the same thing. Find what you love, whether it's basketball, whether it's tennis, whether it's walking, running, or whatever it is that you love, And then you do that. And if you love it, then you're definitely going to do it. It's not going to be torture, but,
Right.
and then you're going to, because of the happiness or the joy that you're doing it from, it puts your brain in a different space as well.
That's right. And I'm highly competitive. So anybody out there that's competitive, it makes it so much easier when you're competitive to get
Mhm.
exercise. Like if you're playing against somebody, like I said, tennis or basketball, or, it's like, you don't even think about the exercise. I can go an hour and I'm playing, all of a sudden I'm drenched in sweat. I've been running up and down the court.
Yeah.
I got an incredible workout,
Mhm.
and give me more. I just lost that game. Let's go. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, that is absolutely huge, and
Mhm.
definitely top tip. And then, okay, so then the final tip I would give for the final core, emotional health and giving back. I'll give two tips because they're kind of slightly different things. So for the emotional health part, that is basically, it's your overall kind of, are you living a life full of passion and purpose, and are you actually enjoying the ride, or are you just constantly like looking down, scratching off to-dos, trying to just get through the day? You're not enjoying your life, you're not expressing your passion. So I would say proactively making a list of the things that you love, and then making sure that you're incorporating them into your life regularly, right? So like whether it's doing a sport or whether it's creativity, like you're an artist, you like to paint, you haven't painted in 10 years, right? Like
Mhm.
you got to get them on your calendar, use technology and sign up for a class, or get a buddy that you can paint with, or whatever it is, and get it into your regular routine. Because again, it's a habit like anything else. And if you start doing it, then all of a sudden you're doing it, you don't even think about it. It's not like, oh, I don't have time for it. It's, oh, I have this at this time, and it's part of my daily schedule, right?
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden your life just starts to improve because you're incorporating more of the things that you love and are passionate about. And then the last one, the giving
Giving
back
back.
one,
Yeah.
just every morning I have a mantra that I say to myself every morning that I've memorized. And in that mantra, it talks a little bit about this and I would recommend that as well. That's more of a mindset tip. So if we can go back to that as another mindset tip. I definitely recommend, and I focus on all the things I know that I want in life. And then at the end of it, I talk about what I'm grateful for. So I get this feeling of like, oh man, I'm so lucky, versus starting, and it just boosts me, rocket propels me into the day, because I start happy and excited and like, all right, let's go. But what's the legacy you're going to leave? Is the world going to be better or worse for having you in it? And just kind of reminding yourself, that's one of the parts of my mantra, reminding yourself of that on a daily basis, so that, it's basically like, okay, am I sucking the soul and the energy out of life? Am I being greedy and selfish and cheating people and the world to try to get this money that, again, as I mentioned earlier, is not the route to happiness. And once, even if you got what you wanted, you would just say, okay, I want more now. But instead, what is the mark you're going to leave on the world when you're gone, when it's all said and done? And if you have children, what do you want them to pick up from you? And just reminding yourself of that regularly, and if you can incorporate that into your business, what you do for a living, kudos. And if you can't, or you're not, I don't like the word can't. If you're not doing it right now, maybe you can pivot to a way that you can, or, do stuff like that just fills your soul, where you're giving back. I mean, even something little like holding the door for people, smiling at people when you walk by. Nobody smiles anymore, right? They're all down on their phone. Little things, those count too. But, the bigger things like being a big brother or big sister, dedicating your time to helping others. I'm a mentor for a lot of college kids. I do it for free, even though I can charge a lot, because I know I see the benefit that it's doing for them. So that would be the final tip, and that goes into the giving back section.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I see also you talking about paying it forward. Yeah, I started my interviews talking to a good friend of mine that is very big on paying it forward. So that's what you're doing, paying it forward by your free mentoring. So that's awesome. So I love that. That was a good idea to give a success habit from each of your 5 core areas of life. So as we wrap up, so tell our listeners more about your business, More Momentum, how they can get in contact with you, and what exactly is your program?
So moremomentum.com is the website. You can, there's let's see, the momentum movement tab at the top, and you can sign up for, I've got a weekly blog and newsletter that I do. At the top, there's also the social media buttons. If you're Instagram or your Facebook or whatever, I put my stuff on there, and you can follow along. My Instagram in particular, my page, Will More Momentum, it's at Will More Momentum, MOORE, like my last name. Daily tips. I post viral videos of stuff that's, again, like I'm trying to kind of gamify the experience. I'm helping people trick their brain into wanting to watch the stuff that's good for them. So like, it's funny and it's interesting, but instead of it just being, oh, somebody falls on their face and breaks their arm, it's, oh, wow, there's a good lesson in there. And I, try to add that in, and so that people, have fun while learning good lessons. And then I do a bunch of stuff like interviews like this, and I put little clips, and I'll do a 5-Core Friday every Friday, which will be coming out today, where I do like one main kind of tip that I focus on for the week. And then I've got the app that's going to be coming up. Super excited, where I think I mentioned briefly earlier, it's going to just take everything I've been doing over the last 25 years and culminate it into one device, where you can stop your failure habits in your 5 cores and replace them with success habits. You're a rocket ship. It's gamified. You've got your 5 core cylinders of your engine. In order to fly up to the moon, to break Earth's gravitational pull, you got to get enough momentum to get off the ground by stopping those failure habits, replacing them with success habits, one step at a time. I make sure I take it through very slowly. Remember the law of compounding. If you rush into it and you try to change everything at once, it'll never work. Then all of a sudden you're flying off to different planets and universes and solar systems, and you're meeting aliens along the way, and you're getting universal principles and tips, flying through asteroid fields, building up your armor, becoming an unstoppable force. It's super exciting. You can sign up on my website for that as well. If you click on the app, it'll say, be notified when the app will be available.
Okay. So when is that coming out? What is the trajectory?
Well, it was supposed to come out it's not my first app, so this doesn't surprise me. It's supposed to come out 6 months ago. Then it was supposed to come out at the beginning of this year. Now we're looking at probably 2 months, realistically, until it's finally done. But I'm doing it the right way, and I don't regret that, it's taking this long, because it's going to blow people's minds. It's pretty.
I know. I absolutely love it. Wow. So that's great. Not only for adults, but for children, teaching them, that they can do anything. And, if they want to get to the moon or they get to the top of their goals, then these are the things that they should be doing. So that's absolutely amazing. Now, Will, I really did enjoy talking to you. This is amazing. You do good things. It's your story is absolutely the story that we should all be sharing. That doesn't matter how you start out, is where you end up. So we talked like for 2 seconds on your childhood with your mom and things like that. And we spent the rest of the time talking about all the good things and all the, what you've been doing. You're paying it forward, giving back, highly successful. And your 5 core areas of success habits. One of the bad things about humans is that whether it's a success habit or a failure habit, you just keep doing it. So it's actually pretty good to replace those failure habits and take them into success habits, so you can do it. So I just want to thank you very much for coming on. For our regular listeners, that you can get a transcript of my interview with Will on the show page, which is blog.myhelps.us. And on there, I would also have links to his website. And definitely follow him. I will definitely follow him as well on Instagram, because listen, tips and quotes and things like that, it puts you into the mind frame of a success. How does fate come, or how does anything come? By hearing and hearing. So a pretty good thing that you're doing, Will. And definitely I'm going to sign up for that app too, because we can all use help.
Even me, right.
That's right.
I'm learning every day, and I'm growing every day. I listen to podcasts. I subscribe to things. I mean, we're constantly, and if I knew everything, my life would be miserable. Remember, it ties back to, you got to
Right.
constantly be growing and
Yeah.
evolving. So
Yeah. I absolutely love growing. Like I said, my fun is walking and listening to either books or podcasts or something. And they go together. They go together. So thank you again, Will. Any last words before we wrap up?
nope, just thanks everybody for tuning in. Myrna, thank you so much for having me. And here's to everybody firing on all cylinders.
Yes, all cylinders, all of them. You know, you have to be a well-rounded person. You can't just be have money and have no relationships, or have physical health but no emotional health. So great.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, listen. Thank you for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life. This was an excellent topic on transforming your mindset and transforming your life by your habits. So until next time, blessings.